The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests of this show do not represent their employing agency, department, or organization. All information should be regarded as anecdotal, contextual, and educational, and should not be misinterpreted as legal or medical advice. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the purpose and call to policing, to public service. We're going to talk about a specific story, stress, resilience, and we're going to talk about Code 4 Northwest and all the awesome things we're doing. On that team, I want to welcome Tricia Small. Tricia, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me today, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a very intriguing, unique story, and I was just wondering if we could just kind of open up and tell us a little bit about your coming into the policing profession, and now you're working right alongside it. So we're just going to jump into it wherever you'd like to start.
Yeah, I started later. I was about 30 when I went. Before I was a police officer, I was a prosecutor, and I loved that job. It was a great job, but I had a more calling to serve, and I wanted to be more involved in the public and then getting cases and stories out. I entered after my best friend from law school's husband was killed by a police officer, and then my best friend was killed by a DUI driver in the city of Auburn. And I thought, life's short. I want to make an impact. So I joined. And I loved being a cop. Loved it. Best job ever. Was excited to go to work, even if I hadn't slept. I liked the adrenaline. I liked talking to people. I like the non-criminal calls just as much as the criminal calls because every day's different, right?
Yeah.
But I think I loved it too much, and it didn't love me the way the skills and the support to live a balanced life as a first responder. After about 5 years in the profession, or 6 years in the profession, I really started struggling with depression. Wasn't sleeping, was self-medicating. I didn't know it at the time that I was self-medicating. I thought, it was my days off. I can do on my days off. If I have a couple beers, I can't get called in, and it got out of control. At that point, I was working for a smaller agency in King County. We had a peer support team, but I didn't trust anyone on it and looking outside the department for help. And I got into therapy, and I was working with a first responder culturally competent psychologist, and I was trying to stay in the profession, but I wasn't sleeping. Calls were starting to haunt me. A lot of calls involving kids. Those were the hardest for me.
Yeah.
And I don't have kids. So, one thing I like to say to people and remind command staff is those who don't have kids aren't the ones to always have the kid calls. There's maybe underlying things I can't have children. So kid calls are hard for me. And so October of 20, I'd been in the profession for about 7 years. I had been flirting with suicide ideation along with a heavy use of alcohol. But I always had I didn't want to leave a mess for first responders, right? Into suicides, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. And so October 2021, I was in the girls' locker room in my department, and I had my gun, my duty weapon in my mouth ready to pull a trigger, and I got toned out to a call. I couldn't tell you what that call is today, but that call saved my life. And obviously, if I can't remember, it wasn't real.
Yeah, but you remember what happened, where you were, and I got chills. I mean, you told me this before, but I got chills again for that. If it's not divine intervention, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, dispatch saved my life. They don't even know it. And so being a police officer, I was always afraid that I'd get a fit for duty, and I did not want to lose my job. And so I reached out to my psychologist. I actually reached out to Code 4. I had known about Code 4 Northwest since I went to the academy because they had a little presentation in the academy. Nick Bauer called me back and just talked to me. And he's like, and I was real reluctant to talk. I had a lot of distrust in males and command staff, just in my experience. I ended in my first department, I had arrested a commander for a DUI. And so and Nick was just one of those guys that you could talk to. And he's like, you're just hang in there. I know some resources. And so 2 days later, I'm at First Responder Wellness in California. And I did not want to go. I did not think I knew I had a problem with suicide. I did not know I had a problem with alcohol. I've been sober for 4 years, and my sobriety date doesn't line up with my treatment date.
Mm,
So, I got sober in treatment.
yeah.
Because if you don't have a problem with alcohol, but you go to treatment and you sneak a beer, you think you have a problem with alcohol.
Yeah, can I interrupt for a moment? And like, you didn't want to go, and I think that from people I know and people I've heard of, like that's not uncommon for those that are they're recognizing they need help, but they don't want to go. It's hard, right? And what got you to go? What got you to accept that?
I knew I was gonna if I didn't go, I was gonna die, and I didn't wanna die. Like, and there was no other option for me. It was to go to treatment, get help, or die. And I knew I had so I chose life, and it's scary. It's scary to go, and if you talk to people that met me when I went, I was an asshole, pardon my language, but I was
We
not
all have been, and we will continue to be at times.
I was not nice to the treatment staff, I was not nice to the clinicians, and they just hung in there, and it was the hardest decision I've made, but the best one, and they accepted me where I'm at. The treatment facility said, "Yeah, sure, whatever, come on your terms." I think going to a place that understood first responders was key, and then 2, having the clinicians that understood our culture and our personalities. Because you could let your guard down if you're not concerned about who's in the room, because you if something were to happen, everyone would act. It's, like, a little more easy to be vulnerable. Yeah, and so I spent my time down there, and what was interesting is that Code 4, Nick, he would check in from time to time, and I didn't know him from like, I couldn't tell you what he looked like, but
Yeah,
"Hey, you still there?" "How's it going?" And, like, that was really nice. I had never had a supervisory, and I would say Nick is a supervisor. I would never have I had someone check in on me, and it's just like the follow through was very impressive. So,
yeah,
yeah. So that's what kinda drew me to Code 4 after I got out, and, when I got out of treatment, I'd say the best thing that treatment did was get me sober and get me safe. I still had to tackle PTSD, and that took a little bit longer than I thought. When I got back, I was sober, and I took steps in my life to get myself sober. I made or stay sober. I made support system. I left a bad relationship. I was honest and vulnerable with the people that were in my life for the first time. Like, I struggled with alcohol, I can't be around it, and I built a connection. And then, kinda I had to live life differently because I couldn't go back to policing. My psychologist would never sign off on it because I had too much suicidal ideation and too many too close.
how did you feel about it back then when you got that feedback or that professional insight from your clinician?
Oh, I was pissed. It was hard. It took still there'll be moments where I'm just like, "Man, I miss it." I wish I could do the job, but I would change that the opportunity that I had to do the job because of the service and the experience that I have. It was a hard pill to swallow, but I don't think that's everyone's path when you reach out to get help. I think if you reach out to get help a little bit sooner, you can I know lots of people that come back to the profession
Yeah,
and, in a whole different capacity. So, I wouldn't be afraid to go and get help for fear of the loss because I'd rather get help and live and learn how to serve in a different capacity than be dead.
yeah. Yeah, I know in the wellness space, we use this metaphor of the car redlining all the time. And it's almost like you got this car it was built for the racetrack and and it redlined too many times. And it's like, it's not that it can't drive. It's just like, yeah, not on the racetrack though, or it's just not going to be good for anyone. And so I think that that could be like a metaphor to think about in a different way. But I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, you've covered a lot in 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 sequence, and I do have questions kind of going back through it. But I think that's really healthy for us to recognize is that you didn't want to go to treatment. You didn't want to, take the badge and uniform off. But it kind of goes back to one of the first points you made, which was that you loved the job so much and it didn't love you back. You want to talk more about that, or what are your reflections on that after this road through, like I said, resilience to use that word earlier, but just like growth.
Man, I did love the job. Just talk about the most fulfilling job that I could imagine. But, like, I didn't have the coping skills, I know that's a word that people throw around, to put the stress and what I saw every day away. Like, I had too many rocks in my back, as they say, and I did not know to take care of that and to let it go and not identify or be on alert all the time.
Hmm.
And so I didn't have the wellness skills to keep going in that profession. And so I had to learn them as a later on in life adult, you know.
Yeah.
Everyone has different things that they do to keep themselves going.
Yeah. Is there anything that you learned from your time at First Responder Wellness that really started to stick? And then, what do you do now? Like, what helps you now that you would tell young Trisha if you had the chance?
First responder wellness, one of the biggest tools they taught is just to pause. An acronym called that they taught me was REST. Um, like if a situation comes up or your feeling comes up, or you just REST stands for relax, evaluate, set, and take action. And take action could be doing nothing. It just gave me a second to catch my breath to implement. And then connection, having people that you can trust and talk to offload, and then having like external, really equine therapy was huge for me. Animals, anything with animals in me, I
Yeah.
can, I get a lot out of because I don't have to talk. I can just be and they accept me. And there's a weird release that happened. Honestly, when I got back from FRW, I went and got a puppy. I like to say I lost my job, I lost my house, I lost my marriage, I gained a puppy and a new life.
And the puppy will love you back, unlike the job.
And the puppy will love me back, but getting the puppy and training the puppy, I was trying to make it a service dog. She ended up not passing. I do have a service dog now, but training the dog because a dog will feel anything that you feel down the leash. So it kept me doing the wellness practices of regulation, of breathing, of pausing, of forgiveness. Like when you get angry, get frustrated, and if you act out, it forgive myself, right? Like we all make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's something that we can all take on regardless of what profession we're in and what stage in life and what stressors. But I love a couple things that you mentioned. One is the pause because the world feels like it's moving faster and faster than ever, tech, AI, all this. However, like if we're just honest with ourselves in the moment, like everyone can take a moment, right? Maybe the moment is 15 minutes. Sometimes it's literally 20 seconds where you can just close your eyes for a sec, breathe, and just stay grounded, like feet on the ground, just kind of recalibrate. I think that would just really do the world a lot of good if we were all a little bit better at that, regardless of what's going on. But something you said relatively recently too was like recognizing and learning to be honest and vulnerable. And it's interesting because I don't think that those things are said together oftentimes. I think that we in the first responder world, especially policing, talk a lot about integrity, right? You lie, you die. But how often are we honest with ourselves and open? And when I think about vulnerability, it becomes like trust and openness of, hey, I'm here and I have the courage to show who I am, what I'm about, but also accept help, just like you'd be so willing to give it to somebody in your circle that you're there for, that you care about.
Yeah, I agree with all your statements. I just think for me, it was really hard to be vulnerable with myself. But once I allowed that, I had such more capacity to help others.
Yeah.
I was authentic, right? Like And people know when you're authentic and not, like, they know when you're blowing smoke, as I like to say.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like know thyself. And I coming out of recruitment, so many people would ask, "Hey, like, what do you want to see in an officer, or what what's going to help career development?" And usually, the things that I would start to lean towards more and more is communication, adaptability, but then like introspection, like knowing yourself and being honest with yourself, like knowing who you are, what you're about, but then like, where are you strong? Where are you a little deficient, so that you can develop not just career-wise, but wellness-wise, right? Where are your blind spots? Like, how do you keep that sharp? And so I appreciate that. And you're saying a lot of things, and I think it's because at the time we're recording, episode 303 just came out relatively recently, but Raquel Lackey was on there with from Hope Dogs and really talking about how the presence of an animal, like, it does keep you right there, but also it makes you honest, right? You talked about the puppy, like feeling that energy down the leash. And I think one of the powerful things, and it's not just telling everyone to get a dog, like not everyone needs to get a dog, not everyone should, maybe a cat, maybe a plant, but it's not about you, but you have to be the owner of the welfare of this creature, this living thing. But then it becomes like synonymous, right? It becomes harmonious because you get out of it what you get into it, just like relationship. And I mean, like relationship with self, like we invest in ourselves and we ensure our cup is not empty. Like so many first responders have to learn that the hard way in different degrees. But yeah, we can't pour from an open or from an empty cup, which also came out of that episode from, Kristen Cox from Seattle Fire. So yeah, I really appreciate you outlining that.
Thanks. Yeah, I just one of my mottos is just to keep moving too, is
Mm,
like, I'm 4 years sober. I've been out of law enforcement for 3.5 years. I is to just keep moving. I'm not to not be complacent with just being okay. When I'm complacent, I would say complacency kills, right? Even that and when you're on the street, right? If you're
yeah.
complacent in your health, physical health and situational awareness, you will get hurt. And I've carried that through since going to FRW. Like I've continued to build my wellness draw bag, you know. When I got back about a year after coming back from FOW, I was still having some struggles with connecting and finding people and trusting people. So I found Warrior Path from the Permission to Start Dreaming Foundation up here at Gig Harbor, and I went there and, got back in touch with horses and started doing equine therapy. And it's just like always keep moving, always keep one foot going, even if you're crawling, even if you're raising an arm up that day, if that's all I can do, that's all I can do, and that's okay. But I just know connection and movement are key to my success. And I would say success. I'm here today because of my wellness practices. And, I when my service dog I was training for 3 years, I thought, she wasn't gonna make it, and then I went and then my trainer was honest, and she's like, "She's this close, she's just one thing shy." She wanted to serve others, shockingly, and so she cared about everyone else in the room as not as much as she cared about me. Well, she's a great therapy dog. She had a career change, right? Now she's a therapy dog in a clinical setting, in a physical therapy clinic. Um And that was a big crutch, right? That was a huge blow, and I thought I would never get a service dog because I wasn't a former military, and I didn't have a lot of money because I wasn't working, and between up until recently, I hadn't worked, and, I found an amazing organization called Cascade Service Dogs out of Olympia that helps first responders, and they have facility dogs too. I thought I'd in 2.5 years, I thought I'd be waiting for 2.5, 3 years to get a serv 2 weeks after I put in my application, I got a call, and then I got a dog, and it's just like, sometimes life happens, and, like, letting life happen is a like, I can't control everything,
Yeah.
and, that's a one I have to practice, like, the lack of control.
Mm, yeah. And I think that's where stoicism so it resonates with a lot of first responders because we to be effective in your job, you try to control as much as you can to include all these contingencies and outcomes. But really, like if we're honest, and it's kind of jarring for those that haven't tried to think about it, but we control so little. Like so little. Like I'm very passionate about my fitness, but in the last decade, there's
Nothing crazy, but there's setbacks. Like it's a training injury, or right now it's just like it's probably because I hit 40 and it's like my left shoulder. It's probably stuff at work. It's probably stuff outside of work. It's probably the dog leash pulling on yanking on that thing. But I got like minor tears that I'm doing PT for. But it's just like you just roll with it. And I love how you say, just keep going. It's like there's Nike, just do it. There's, Finding Nemo, like just keep swimming. But like whatever version, it's like do something. And oftentimes it doesn't have to be a lot. And oftentimes it shouldn't be a lot because of where we're at when we're telling us that mantra. I'm wondering, okay, so you tell this, you shared about your service dog in training and how, your dog was better suited for for therapy work. I'm drawing this comparison to you in police work and now what you're doing working with Code 4. Have you made that connection? It's like almost illustrative to your own story.
Yeah, my wife made that connection for me.
Okay.
From interviews to jail calls, Ditto Transcripts delivers fast, confidential, and court ready transcription for law enforcement agencies. Ditto is CJIS compliant and is already working with agencies all over the U.S., including the Washington State Patrol and the National Park Service Investigations Unit. Get started now at dittotranscripts.com. That's dittotranscripts.com. To hear details about all the applications of Ditto transcripts and exactly why this is a key solution for your organization's workload issues, check out episode 232.
You train for the threats you can see, but what about the ones you can't? United Diagnostic Services brings hospital grade diagnostic technology directly to first responder agencies, making early detection of cardiovascular disease and cancer more accessible than ever. UDS provides comprehensive early detection programs using advanced ultrasound, CT calcium scoring, stress echoes, and innovative blood panels to identify potential health risks long before symptoms appear. It's proactive, on site, and built specifically for those who serve. Early detection saves lives and careers. Learn more at udshealth.com. Your
She's
wife's
like,
cool. Sharp brain on
yeah,
that one. Keep her.
she yeah, she's smart, very smart. But yeah, it is one of those things where I'm in a new role working with Code 4 to build and develop a vetted clinician directory and up here for the state, as well as was hosting some conferences and training. And I never in my mind thought I would be in this type of capacity. I thought, I always joked my default career would be to be a prosecutor, but I don't get to serve the first responder community as much as in a prosecutor capacity and continue to serve. So that is a great analogy, like Allie, my former service dog, she had to find the right job for her. I think that's what I have found in the current role because I truly believe in the organization of Code 4 and the mission. I mean, the people behind the organization all exemplify wellness, but they all practice it, and that's what it is.
Yeah, it's like in the case of Allie, and I have to believe in the case of yourself, it's like, yeah, you can work towards this thing, and the difference is you did policing for quite a time, more than a lot of people do. Elective or non-elective, right? A lot of people these days, it's like a few years in and they move on. And you didn't have the choice at that time, but to recognize that where we are and we have so much opportunity that purpose is very adaptable, right? It's very nimble. And then the true belief that you can help so many more first responders alongside as this like ally advocate in Code 4 Northwest, just like, Allie's helping more people as a therapy dog than if you stuck to your guns and you grinded it out, right? Like it's almost like a different version of just like toughing it out. Like, no, she's going to be a service dog, dang it. And then maybe she could be, but then, is she best suited? And then you have this other service dog that now you have this, I imagine, an amazing relationship and partnership with.
Yeah, and it's funny, my new service dog, Vinny, I've had him for a year now, but his name is Vinny. My One of my first patrol partners' names was Vince, and still one of this day, my best friend, one of my best friends. Like,
Oh,
fine intervention. Now my new partner's name is Vinny. It's just
yeah.
life happen, good things will happen, as scary as that is. And that is just let life happen. I can control me. I can control my wellness. I can to a certain degree. Mind you,
Yeah,
I've had
yeah.
to in a year and a half because I had one to repair an injury, and then I had a nightmare and it kicked it out. But I didn't let that get me down. I didn't let that stop me, you know? And I educated the doctor on now how to deal with first responders. She will put everyone in a hip brace. That's a first responder that gets the surgery now. So they,
Mm,
because I didn't think I was having nightmares at the time. And then the surgery, you know, does stuff to your nervous system. And so it's educational, right? Everything,
yeah.
you know,
What a rough way to find out. I wanna kinda go back to, when things were getting hard for you. When you talked about self-medicating but not knowing it, it doesn't take me or you. There's a lot of clinicians, like, with a lot of letters after their names that speak, very eloquently and data driven to that point. But I think and I believe in a lot of people that have been in, with our experience for a while, would probably venture to say there's a lot of undocumented self-medicating and like what qualifies as that. I mean, maybe they're taking stabs at it with some studies, but I think just for the listeners, I'm curious if you have from your personal insight, if you could share something so people can kind of conceptualize what you mean by that, because I think we would find it in ourselves and not look too hard. And I'm sure that there's times when I did, when especially as a younger officer, and you call it different things, just trying to take the edge off and go to bed. Also, how do we get together and part of communion, celebrating things like, but alcohol played a very, for me and my friends, like a very dominating role in what it didn't need to be.
yeah, I mean, like, I every gathering that I'm with my friends when we were first responders, everyone was drinking, and it was 1 beer, 2 beers. I meet people all the time nowadays that have, like, a half a drink, and I'm like, "How do you do that? That's amazing." But it was days off. We had already planned a barbecue. We knew at the barbecue we were gonna have a tie one on, and then it became, "Let's have a bonfire. Let's have a get together," right? Because not a lot of you're working shift work. You have the middle of the week off. Everyone else in the world is working, and you're up at 2 a.m., Like, so you hang out with people that are on your cruise, and they're your good friends. But, like, I had rules where I didn't drink the days I worked. I didn't drink when I got home from shift because I never wanted to drink after a bad shift or a bad call because I was in control. Days off, I would drink and I would have several glasses of wine or several beers, and then it turned into a bottle of wine or a case of beer, and I wouldn't drink the day before my shift, but those days that I had off that I knew I wasn't working, it was game on.
Mm, full bore.
Full bore, right? Like, I'm going to a barbecue. Let's stop and grab something to drink. We're going to dinner. Let's have a few drinks. Then you get home and you have a few more. And so, I never showed up to work hungover. I never drank on duty. I never had withdrawal symptoms. I've been hungover a lot, but I thought I managed it, right? Because it didn't affect my career, but it really did. And it really did affect my life. I'd get to the point that I drink to fall asleep on my days off because I just wanted to sleep. And that is not healthy.
It's not. Lots of sleep experts will attest that you're not even getting quality sleep, and we won't go down the rabbit hole there. And my goal, and I appreciate you sharing. And my goal is not to have people shame or like really question alcohol usage, but it is to be curious about alcohol usage. I've heard certain things in the last half a year that made me really curious. Like I think I called myself a social drinker for the last 20 plus years. But honestly, I don't think I was one until the last handful of years because in certain celebratory, it's just like, yeah, you tie one off. And because it reduces your inhibition, I think that you do feel like you get to this bonding state with your buddies, your battle buddies, your comrades really quickly, really easily. But truly, when I look at like my greatest relationships, some that I've had friendships over, a dozen or 2 dozen years, like you don't need alcohol to get close and share deep things. In some ways, it can actually get in the way of it. So there's a lot of health implications that I've been learning about. But also, I think I just questioned my relationship because I recognized I felt uncomfortable not drinking, unless I was like the DD or something specific. But I felt uncomfortable not drinking when everyone else was. Like, well, that's a odd thing. And I felt when I'd get stressed and be in a conversation or a setting I didn't like, I would drink more. I'm like, well, that's not a great thing. And so, again, it's not to shame or blame. It's just to ask people to be curious about what we do, why we do it, because that's what came to mind personally when you're talking about certain ways of coping. And I cope a lot of ways, and there's a lot of not so healthy things I do. So again, I'm not better than anybody else. It's just me trying to explore what's going to best serve my life, my family, and what I'm trying to get done in this world.
Yeah, and I 100% don't wanna shame people, and I would like to say, not everyone that misuses alcohol is an alcoholic. The
Yeah.
difference, like, for me personally is I couldn't just have a half a glass of wine. I
Mm,
can't have the wine. Like, I can't if I see some I will finish the drink. My wife is what we call a normal person. She will a normie. She can drink one sip of a drink and just walk away from it. And so, like, there's different everyone has a different relationship with
yeah.
alcohol. Just because you might have a few more drinks doesn't mean you're an alcoholic, right? You know, only you can make that determination, and there's no shame in either one.
Yeah, I think it goes back to introspection, right? Knowing yourself and like, do you have these compulsions? Can you have the one bite of ice cream in the freezer and then put it away? I can't. My wife can. I think she's a mutant or something, right? She's an alien. But there's there's that stuff that's helpful to know. Like, and it's yeah, I might be able to do it when I'm well rested on a day. But if it's after shift and I have not slept, then that whole pint's disappearing if I open it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
ice cream's oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah. Well, I do want to turn it back to Code 4. There's a lot super excited about when people are listening to this. They need to make sure to check out the episode with Nick Bauer himself, as you mentioned. I mean, he's been just kind of the dude for so long since its beginning. One of the dudes, and now he's one of the dudes. Now retired, then a sergeant with SPD. But yeah, just to hear your specific recollection, not knowing him from anybody else, but how he showed up, and he's done that countless times, like that I've heard about in closeness, close proximity, and then just how many times he's done that. So it's really exciting to see Code for growing, specifically with your involvement because you're organizing all this. Like I'm part of all these emails and spreadsheets, and I'm like, cool, like you're helping us build, a conference, which is no small task, and the trainings. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
We're hosting a conference. We're partnering with, our relating to the Behind the Badge Family
Yeah,
Weekend. We're going the first couple days before that about first responder wellness for every first responder in the state. And I was just talking with Dr. Kachette this morning. She's keynote, awesome to have, excited to have her. And it's kind of about like whole wellness and resiliency, right? Like what is wellness and like resiliency and like how can we support first responders to keep being in the fields or to just live a life beyond what you do, like a holistic approach to you as a human being and developing tools and resources and you know, addressing all the different types of first responders we have in the state now that, whether you're a medical examiner, whether you're a dispatcher, or police or fire, or co-responder, you know, you all everyone faces different challenges, but everyone needs tools about wellness, right? Everyone matters.
yeah, I love that. Shout out to Dr. Stacy. She's a I don't know what mythical beast to compare it to, just like her wealth of knowledge, not just wellness, but, profiling. Like, I don't want to turn the episode into highlighting her, but she's pretty badass. But also, yeah, I love that the partnership with Behind the Badge. And yeah, like wellness is so many forms and styles, and it means so many things to different people, but just to bring more language and awareness to all of our first line frontline responders, or parallel careers, our family, our support systems. I love it. It's super exciting just to be a part of this traction that's building. And then also, you brought up the peer support directory, and kind of earlier in your story, not trusting your local peer support. And that's a valid thing. Like it's either not trusting, or maybe it's not distrusting the personalities, but maybe your agency is small and you're like, I just don't like, yeah, I like a lot of the people here. I just don't need them or want them to know this. Also, there's just a lot of different layers and complications when you have something so small. So just being able to bring that to the greater region and, perceivably be like, hey, I've heard of this person, or this is someone outside my county. I'm just going to talk to them because they don't know me from anyone, right? I'm just, you know, today I'm Alec. I'm not Eric, right? And so I just want to talk
Yeah.
and vent about my work stuff and hear and have somebody hear me that knows.
Yeah, and that's, and we're building this from the ground up. I've tried to reach out to almost every agency in the state. I'm still working on that. There are a lot of fire agencies in the state. And so, what agencies have peer support, what agencies want peer support, what agencies don't even know they qualify for peer support, you know? And we're in the process of developing a policy so that people can see what it takes to be a part of this regional network too, so that you know that when you call someone, they're vetted and trained and have the skills. So there is the confidentiality as well as they have the tools and resources to help you because you want to meet people where they're at.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for breaking that down. Tricia, is there anything that you'd like to close with? And please tell people where they can reach out to learn more. And I'm excited to continue to share like what we have going on and what we're building here.
Yeah. I would just reiterate, just keep going. Just keep moving. You're worth it even in your darkest moments. There will be better days and everyone has value. And to those that are if you're struggling or have struggled, you have value. You matter. You might not believe it right now, but people believe it and you might not even know them. You can contact me through Code 4 and you can call our hotline. Our website is being redeveloped. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn as well, and I can shoot you in my email if you want to be involved in the peer support network as well as the clinician directory. Just keep going. You're worth it.
Well, thank you so much, Tricia. I'm glad you're here with us, and I'm glad you're here with Code 4. So many good things and so much great work you're helping us do. So thank you so much, and thank you for this conversation today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Of course.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.